Welcome to the After the Timeout podcast, hosted by Todd and Jon. We have an awesome guest today, Amanda Crockett, head women's basketball coach at North Park University. We have a great conversation with Coach Crockett about being Miss Basketball Ohio, recruiting, coaching Division III, the WNBA's exposure to younger players, and challenges for today's players. Hope you enjoy.
All right, so we like to start off with our favorite segment, the opening tip. It's our first segment. We just get to know our guests, get to loosen them up a little bit. So we found out through doing our homework that in 1995, you finished your career as both a state champ and Miss Ohio basketball. So we were just curious from you, maybe some of your favorite memories from that senior season.
Yeah, well, it was a long time ago. But it was a significant accomplishment. It was a really big deal. And, what I remember most is just how the community came together and really supported us in girls basketball at that time. And, we played in front of packed gyms and just had a lot of support. And what I remember most is just all the friendships, that I made along the way, friends and teammates from high school that I'm still close with today. My former high school coach, I'm still close with him today. We would run a basketball camp every summer. He just retired last year, and he's I think he's won the most games in all of Ohio. So a very renowned coach. And yeah, it was a real positive experience. And, everyone just kind of came together and supported us, which was just such a big deal back then.
All right, so let's get into kind of this year. We like to let our coaches, just as we're starting the season here, right? We're about to kick it off. You guys, probably have another week or so before you start?
Yeah, our first game is November 5th. Yeah.
So just, what's going on in your program? Coaches, some players you want to highlight, even the conference, anything in the conference that's going on.
Really excited about this season. We're very senior. We're all conference players for us. Jayla Johnson has been all conference all 3 years. She just scored her 1,000th point as a junior last year. And Emily Chuachowski is also a senior, and she was all conference last year and is our leading 3-point shooter. And we have other seniors that are really ready to step up, and we just received a preseason rankings. I think we're third in conference, which makes sense. Last year we finished third. The year before we finished third in conference. So our goal is to win it, and go to the NCAA tournament. I think we have the tools to do it. We also have a great coaching staff. Our assistant coach, Annie Shane, she's been with us as a full-time assistant for 4 years. She played for me. She was a grad assistant for us. And then when I'm going to be away on maternity leave for a little bit here, she will be taking over the reins. We also have a graduate assistant coach, Ayana Wilson, and 2 part-time assistants that are helping us out as well.
Yes, I remember Emily from Taft making threes for my team. So we can talk about that off the air. But yes, I do remember much of your personnel. Mm-hmm. We wanted to get to, as a high-level player, you went through the recruiting process yourself, obviously. So First of all, kind of take us through what it was like to go through the process for yourself as an athlete, and then kind of what eventually led you to choosing the school that you did. And then maybe from that experience, now as a coach, how do you help players in the process and kind of sell your program to them?
Back when I played in high school, it was so different. You weren't able to just go to all these tournaments and be seen. You played AAU basketball because you tried out and you made the team. There weren't as many AAU programs. They were very select. And then you had to win your state tournament to go on to the national tournament and be seen by college coaches. So it was different. And then, nowadays, we can go out and see so many kids over the summer play. And for us, the biggest challenge is, connecting with those recruits, building relationships, because we're NCAA Division III, our recruiting pool is a little bit larger than what it would be at a Division I school, because we're not offering, that full ride athletic scholarship. It's a little bit different. But it is the same in that you're looking for, kids who can play, high character kids who are going to impact and help your program.
So I want to follow up on that a little bit. And obviously this past year, I think we got more into technology, right? All the games have been, most high schools are streaming. So if you need to see somebody, you can see them that way too. How has that helped you in the process? Maybe kind of, because a lot of times before you would go, you'd have a player in mind. We've all done it. John did it. And I did it when I coached Harper Lake. And you're like, okay, yeah, I wish I would have known that before, or saw something like that before I got there. So how does that help kind of, for you guys, streamline maybe the process a little bit to where you can kind of, it's not the same as seeing them in person, but see them on video and kind of maybe confirm or, develop opinions that way?
Yeah, it's helped. We were able to utilize the streaming, during the COVID year last high school season. But like you said, it's not the same seeing them in person, getting a gauge for them, speed, skill wise, competition, who are they playing against, can be challenging. So I'm still a big fan of seeing players, prospects play in person, making that face-to-face connection with them, because we're NCAA Division III, we are allowed to talk to them after games. You're allowed to talk to parents during games. When you're watching it via live stream, you're not going to get that connection with the player. But at least it is a tool that we can use to evaluate, especially out of state recruits who are a little bit further away. It's more difficult for us to get to games. We most definitely utilize that tool.
All right.
So go ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to follow up really quick. I'm just curious of maybe a funny or interesting story from recruiting. Todd and I, as we both said, did a little bit of recruiting on the college level ourselves. We all have those interesting recruiting stories of, maybe waiting in the bowels of a gym to see a kid or talk to a parent, and a funny story. Do you have any kind of, funny or more interesting story of a recruitment of a kid?
Excited to see a prospect play, go travel. It could be an hour, a couple hours to see her play. And then all of a sudden you get to the high school game starts, and she picks up 2 fouls right away and then sits the bench. And then you're just like sitting there like, oh man. And then the kid's not happy. And then you're just like, oh, and then she's not into the flow of the game. And so second half starts, and then it's just not the best game. And you're kind of like, well, that kind of stinks. So that's something that, we joke around as a coaching staff, like, oh yeah, typical foul trouble right now if they're not in the game. So that's something we see on occasions. But yeah, there's random stuff that'll pop up, just traveling to a game, and I've gotten to games like super early. I got the game time wrong, or got the something wrong between Central and Eastern time. That's been an issue if we go to a game in Indiana. But all in all, recruiting is it's a fun process. It's a fun process for coaches getting to know recruits, and I'm hoping that recruits get to enjoy it as well, although it can be a bit frustrating and challenging too.
Yeah, those are one of those situations where you're like, okay, let's look at we got to try to find somebody else here to maybe get my notes on to make the trip worth it too. So I want to go back to when you first took over at North Park. What are some of the things that you had as your core that laid the foundation, the things that you thought you were important, and kind of why did you decide on things? And then over the course of, obviously you take over, you're like, hey, I got these great ideas. And now you get into it. And now you've been there, you've been there for a while now, you know, like what some of those things maybe changed and how you kind of morphed those ideas into where you are today.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing I've always found helpful ever since I started at North Park is to focus on the things that we can control as a coaching staff and as a team. So as a team, you know, we focus on three things. Number one, effort and attitude. Every player, every coach can control that. Number two, defense. We control our effort on the defensive end. And number three, rebounding the basketball. We control that. We're going to have off shooting nights. It's going to happen. We're going to go cold at times. But if we can control those three things, then we're putting us in a great position to win basketball games. And then off the court, you know, focusing on the things that as a coaching staff that we can control. You know, our efforts in recruiting. You know, there's some financial aid things that we can't control. You know, everyone does what they can and you do what you can as an institution, but there's things that are just out of your control and you can't focus on that. You got to let some of those things go and move on. So that's what I've started with and kind of what we've learned throughout the years.
So kind of take us through, and I've coached Division III myself, so I do know the greatness of it, but, you know, kind of take us through what you enjoy most about coaching, you know, D3. You'd previously, obviously yourself played D1, you kind of assisted on the D1 level as well. So what made you interested, first of all, in North Park, and then obviously what made you interested and stayed for a long time in the Division III level?
I played at NIU, you know, really enjoyed my experience there, playing Division I. And, you know, when I always knew I wanted to coach at the collegiate level, you know, when I got into high school and college. So a job opened up at the University of Chicago, which is NCAA Division III. And thankfully, you know, I was hired as a full-time assistant there. And I loved it. I loved the high academic environment. I loved the balance that Division III provides, balance for the athletes, balance for the coaches. And I loved being in Chicago. So when I was at the University of Chicago for 4 years. And then I didn't want to leave the city. And then a job opened up at UIC, which is Division I. And then I got the Division I experience. And I was there for 4 years as well. You know, NCAA Division III and in a great conference, highly competitive. So it all worked out. I was able to stay in Chicago. And each school offered something different and unique. But I really like the small school environment and all it has to offer.
So I want to follow up on that a little bit. And you know, obviously you went through that process, you played at a high level. And I feel like that's not that those aren't good coaches, but I feel like coaches now, they don't necessarily have to play at that high level or coached at D1 like it used to be. It used to be like you had to have that experience, you had to have played at a high level, coached at a high level to get some of these head coaching jobs and even assistant jobs. So how have you seen that change over the years where maybe some different backgrounds have come in and now they're jumping into the coaching ranks and they're really good coaches, but maybe they didn't play at Northern Illinois like you did or start out at that Division I level coaching, have that experience?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen very successful college coaches who, you know, jumped from high school coaching to collegiate coaching. You know, if you look at Sherry Cole, who was at Oklahoma, you know, she went from high school and jumped right into Oklahoma. So, you know, if you work hard and you're successful what you do and you're willing to learn and study the game, like you don't have to be, you know, a Division I athlete. You know, you can learn the game as a student, as a manager. I've seen people jump into like the director of basketball ops positioning and, you know, work their way up from there as well. So there's different paths you can take to get into coaching.
So obviously each year you have a different team, you have different combinations. But we wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the things you obviously mentioned, defense and rebounding. So I'm assuming a lot of those things, those concepts stay the same. But what are some of the things you do offensively and defensively each year, no matter what? And then, kind of how did you decide on those concepts? And then what are you doing with your players to get them to buy into those concepts each year? Because, each year's a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Each year is very different. So what we do as a coaching staff, we have to, so the last couple years, we have been real successful with our man-to-man defense. Last year, we were first in the conference. We were only giving up 55 points a game. So we were first defensively. It's been what's worked for us. So defensively, man-to-man defense. However, there have been a few years in the past and how to anticipate it, and it helped us win games. So I'm not a stubborn coach that says, hey, we're going to play this way every single year. But our man-to-man has been our staple. On the offensive end, again, we have to see where we're at as a team, what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are. We've been very strong in the post. So we've been running a lot of 4 out, 1 in to get our post players the ball. And we've also had guards who can really get to the rim. So we've also run some ball screen offense with that as well. But again, that'll vary year to year. But our each, and then if we don't, then we're going to move the ball and work for the best shot.
She makes it sound so easy. I just, just man to man, just move the ball, get the best shot. I'm in for that anytime.
Simple game, right?
So I want to take the next question kind of in 2 parts. First, I want you to talk about obviously preparing for the season for you and your team and your coaching staff. But then I want to take it to a second part. And obviously, you have kids yourself and a family yourself. I kind of want to know from you personally, and we've asked coaches this before about work-life balance, but also about kind of preparing your family for the season, because we know as coaches that, the best way to be a coach and have a great program is you kind of have to sink yourself into it a little bit. So, kind of take us through, obviously, first, how to prepare that team at North Park, but then second, how to prepare that team at home.
Mm-hmm. Well, the preparation for our team starts in the preseason. Our girls work out with our strength and conditioning coaches, and they're a committed group of girls. So, they work hard in the preseason to get their bodies ready for when we start practice. We just started practice October 17th, so we haven't been going that long. But focusing a lot on the fundamentals, getting them sharp, getting them ready, and finding that fine line between how much do we work on defense and how much do we work on offense. And again, that varies with who we are as a team. Last year, we had a pretty veteran team. So we didn't have to spend a ton of time on the defensive end in practice. We could spend a little bit more time on the offensive end. This year, we did graduate last year who were our best defenders. So, working those newer players into what we're trying to get defensively. So a lot of teaching is going on right now. At the same time, we like to bring our girls in for skill work. So today, instead of getting up and down and practicing, because yesterday we had a scrimmage, we brought them in and, in pairs, 2 at a time. And we got a lot of reps, basic fundamentals, game shots, a lot of shooting, some ball handling in there. And we do that throughout the season to develop our players and to stay sharp with our basic fundamentals. As far as preparing my family, thankfully my husband is real supportive. He understands how the season goes and how busy it can get. And you just kind of have to be ready for anything, when you have young kids. And Thankfully, North Park is supportive of that, and it is a family environment. So if I have to take them to a practice, it's okay. But yeah, just having all the childcare, everything in place, which is a juggle, but it all works out.
I'm right there with you, Coach. Our Vider practices there's 4 or 5 kids there sometimes just running around. So it's all good.
That's just the coaching staff. He's not even talking about their kids.
Right, exactly. We had an awesome WNBA season here, right, with the Sky. And I really felt even last year, one of the best things that came out of COVID was the bubble for women's basketball and it being on more prime time. And obviously women's basketball in the WNBA has been big time for a long time, but I want to talk to you a little bit about like the impact of the Sky and the WNBA has had on girls and women's basketball here, one in the city, but also, it's becoming so much more popular and bigger nationwide.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's been great. Our players, like to watch it. They follow the teams and they get into it. 2 years ago, we were able to get to a game. Of course, last year, because of COVID, we couldn't. And then this year, our girls got to go to a couple playoff games. A good friend of mine is the strength coach for the Chicago Sky. And so she was able to have our girls work the game where they got to rebound for the players, they got to sit courtside, and they loved it. It was great. They got to actually interact with the athletes and everything. So that was a really cool experience for them.
So we wanted to actually hit on an interesting question, and I will give credit to Todd. This was his, but something about we want to talk to you about challenges for today's players. How do we as coaches adapt to meet the needs of athletes today? I think so many coaches, especially older coaches, they're like, well, the athletes of today, they're different. But, it's our job as coaches to adapt to our athletes, not our athletes to adapt to us. What are some ways that you may kind of relate to your athletes, create those relationships, and then, adapt and coach today's athlete?
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing I've found is that, the athletes sometimes just want to be heard. And for me, I found that it's helpful to just sit and listen, listen to what they have to say, listen to what's going on in their personal life, what's going on in school. We intentionally meet with each player individually, once a week, within our coaching staff. And that's to make sure they're doing okay. They're doing okay in the classroom. They're doing okay socially, emotionally. They're doing okay on the basketball court. We wear many hats as a coach, and it's not just X's and O's. X's and O's is probably 10% of it, really. 90% of it is managing your team and, helping them through their college years, and just being that extra ear for them. I don't know if they've changed. I think all this social media stuff and everything that's out there, I think maybe some of them have lost. It's easy for them to lose some self-esteem. So being an ear, listening to them and building them back up at times, because it's hard with everything that's out there right now.
Yeah. And that's kind of, when I thought of that question, that's kind of where I was going, because, when I played, I graduated in 2000, but none of this existed. Like, you didn't have, people being able to see you. Even their basketball stuff is now tweeted out all over the place, and there's this recruiting service and things like that. Mm-hmm. So, I really like that of just listening, right? A lot of times it's just mm-hmm. listening, and that kind of helps maybe not solve all the problems, but it kind of takes a burden off your players. And it's so simple, but I feel like today listening's hard, right? There's Twitter, there's text messaging, you know, not a lot of people phone calls. So the listening part is the hardest part sometimes. So we wanted to,
I was just going to say, it just means we're old, guys. That's all it means.
Well,
just old.
So we want to transition to our last kind of fun segments here. First one we call 30-second timeout. Your dance floor, you're down your dance floor to talk about anything you want to talk about, something that's important to you, your family, a charity, even more about your program. We'll make sure we'll be the assistant coaches and keep the referees from the first horn out of your timeout. We'll shoo them away, distract them a little bit, and your loose 30 seconds or however much time you need to talk about something that's important to you or something you want to talk about today.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, my family's really important. You know, we're expecting our third here. So I have 2 boys, they're 7 and 5. They're definitely a handful. And this one's a girl. So we're switching it up a bit. It's going to be a game changer. And yeah, the timing is interesting because I'm due any day now and season is right here. And but it's been fun. Like the girls on the team are really excited. Our coaching staff is excited. I have a great staff, and they're ready to step in. And I'm excited for our assistant coach. She's going to get some head coaching experience here. So it'll all work out. But yeah, that's something that I'm excited about, and it's going to happen here any day now. So,
Coach, I mean, I could make the joke that it'll be the easiest recruit that you've ever made on your team there coming up. But, I really appreciate you taking the 30 seconds to talk about your family. I think that's really important. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Well, and we all know the little girl in about 3 years will be running those boys around ragged and be the boss. So
yeah,
that'll be good for them, right? Humble them a little bit.
Yeah, they need it.
So as we move into our last segment, we like to call it quick hitters. These are just fun questions. They could be basketball related. They could not be basketball related. I still think our most famous question is when we ask the coach their favorite zoo animal. We don't have that one for you today, but these are just fun questions we'll get into to finish the episode.
Okay, cool.
All right. So the first one is most fun game you played in as a player.
My last game at NIU, my best friend hit the game winner, and it was awesome. We beat Bowling Green on a game winner, and it was drawn up perfect.
Look at that. She gave credit to the coach right there. Drawn up perfect. All right. So we were looking for your best road trip story. So it could be high school, college, coaching. It could be anything. Your favorite story from the road trip.
There's a lot. There's a lot that happens on the road. And at North Park, we like to take a lot of road trips. We try to travel somewhere fun and different, like every year if we can, if not every other year. And I think it was like 3 years ago, maybe 4, we went down to Atlanta, and like 5 of our girls caught the worst stomach bug ever. And it was not a fun trip for them. I'm not saying this was a great trip overall, but what was good about it is that we had these kids sick on the road, which was awful, but yet we had players that stepped up and who weren't getting a whole lot of playing time, but they were ready. They stepped up, they played great. We won our first game. Our second game, we lost to a top 25 team by a couple points. And it was just fun to see how the girls handled the adversity, and we got through it. And the girls that were sick, the poor girls that were sick, got through it. I mean, they had that stomach, like just throwing up. It was bad. And it hit like as soon as we landed in Atlanta. It was just the strangest thing. but things like that happen, and you've got to be able to turn something, turn that adversity into a positive, and we did. And it ended up being a fun trip for those that were healthy.
All right. So the next one, in your personal experience, a life lesson that you had, that you think is important that you like to impart on your players. Maybe it's a core habit or something like that, but like a life lesson or even a life hack that you really try to focus on and help your players knowing, what's coming for them in the future.
Yeah. So what, similar to what I just mentioned, being able to embrace adversity when it comes your way and turn it into a positive. We see it during a basketball game, the peaks and valleys of a game, the ups and downs, and be able to, when things aren't going your way, how do you respond? That's the test of your true character. So we talk about that a lot, and then how it applies to life. Life is peaks and valleys. It's not going to be all just rosy and great. So how are you going to respond when things don't go your way? Are you going to embrace the adversity? Are you going to look it in the eye and then turn it into a positive? So we really talk about that quite a bit.
I think that's a great one. Thank you. So we want to get into the best thing about coaching in the city of Chicago.
It's great. Chicago has so much to offer. There's so much to do. We're on the north side. We've got the L, we've got the bus, we've got, all the Ubers and Lyfts. The girls can get downtown. We've got Foster Beach a couple miles away. Our girls will do like the beach workouts during preseason. And, Chicago is just so fun and so vibrant, and there's so many different ethnic neighborhoods to explore and get out, and restaurants. And a lot of our girls take advantage of that, which is great. And then academically, the internship opportunities that Chicago has to offer as well.
All right. The next one's a hard hitting question. All right.
This
candy
is all
corn.
time.
Yes or no. All right. Candy corn. Yes or no. Cause I was having a debate with my buddies about this the other day. And then your favorite Halloween candy.
Candy corn. No.
Yeah.
Favorite Halloween candy, Snickers bars.
There we go.
Okay. All right. I'll take it.
I have a theory. You can tell a lot about a coach based on the candy corn answer. I think I'm going to work on this. Maybe,
Well, hold on. Just for our listeners, Coach. Now I want to know what Todd's favorite Halloween candy is on record here.
Oh, it's got to be Milk Duds.
Oh, see, I don't think it's stuck in my teeth.
Yeah, they are bad.
You get them in the box of 3. You wad them all up, like I'm sure your boys do, right? They wad them all up, throw them in their mouth, and then So I'm still a 7-year-old boy at heart.
Yeah.
Well, before we move on, for our listeners, mine is Reese's peanut butter cups. You can't go wrong. All right. So off of that, now that I put Todd on the spot with his favorite Halloween candy, as a player, your favorite play to get a shot, like how did you like to get a shot?
I would say utilizing a ball screen. I was more of a driver slasher. So ball screen, getting in there, creating.
Last one, your favorite food spot near North Park or in North Park area?
Charcoal Delights.
Oh yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's one in Des Plaines as well.
Yeah.
There's a few. So that Charcoal Delights is a very good choice.
Yep.
All right. So wait, before we let it go, what is your favorite thing at Charcoal Delights?
I like the burger and the fries.
Okay.
Yeah. I also like the Greek salad and every now and then a hot dog, but yeah.
Well, Coach, we really appreciate you joining us. We know that you are about to have your next child, so we appreciate you taking some time to join us before that. And we do wish you guys good luck this year at North Park.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the After the Timeout podcast, hosted by Todd Zazadil and Jon Flicky. For more show content and upcoming episodes, follow us on Twitter at After the Timeout, or subscribe to our podcast for upcoming episodes. For show inquiries, you can email us at afterthetimeout@gmail.com. You can find all of our previous episodes on Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, Radio Public, Pocket Casts, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts by searching After the Timeout. We appreciate you listening. Tune in next time for more coaching content in-game, out of the game, and anything in between.